Welcome back for the last session of the afternoon. We're going to be going home. Susi Elkins is back with us, manager of WKR, our host here. And Susi's going to talk to us a bit about digital storytelling, a preview of the session that we're going to be doing tomorrow afternoon. So Susi, thanks for finding time for us and being patient with us.
You're welcome. I'm excited. How many of you have heard of Wordle? Have you all used it before? Okay, well then I'll just skip that part. I'm shortening my talk as we go, so if you have heard of something and you don't want me to go over it, just raise your hand. We'll make this interactive that way. But you don't know what it is? I'll spend 2 minutes on it. Basically, I'm just wondering, how many of you in the room are comfortable with technology and feel like you know what you're doing with that? Okay, great. How many of you feel really comfortable integrating technology into the classroom or with students? Wow, that's fantastic. Well then, just to show you really quickly what a Wordle is, for those of you who don't know, just throw some words out to me. Would you say it's fun integrating technology? Some people have said scary, exciting. I'm sorry?
Problem solving.
Undependable.
Frustrating.
Oh gosh.
Dictatorial.
Frustrating.
Connecting.
Challenging.
Efficient.
Oh, I'm spelling these right.
Relevant.
Relevant.
Productive.
I'm sorry?
Productive.
Saturated.
These are good.
Creative.
Door opening.
For those of you who use it, is it a tilde that connects them together?
Yeah.
Thank you. How many of those that I have listed there, which ones should I add? I have a lot of funs. Is it more exciting than scary? I'll just try that. For those who haven't seen this before, I just want to show the effect it'll have. So, complex. So let's see what happens here. We're just entering in a bunch of text. It might take a second. For some reason, our wireless is not as fast today as usual. Ooh, that's an interesting font. Let's try. Okay, there we go. So if you haven't seen it before, I think Wordle is a fun way to get things started in the classroom. If you have ideas about a lesson or something that you want to visually show the kids what they're thinking about, what their ideas are, if you are brainstorming, I think it's fun to use it in that way. It also can be fun to make a poster or some kind of a design about something that you're working on, and I've seen them printed on big, huge banners at conferences that are just simple Wordles that are done that way. So we did this with art teachers before who hadn't seen it, and they gave me about 100 ideas of how they were going to use it in the classroom. So I just thought we would start off that way. Plus, it gives me an idea of how comfortable you are. And I'm often talking with educators who aren't integrating technology at all. So this is really exciting to see how comfortable you are with that. And it also means we can move along pretty quickly. Any questions about that?
Is Wordle free?
It is free. I've noticed that the creator of it, he doesn't have a lot of support for it. And so there's an FAQ on the site, on his blog site that you can get to from here that explains what he can do and what he can't do.
Wordle.com?
.net.
And you have to have Flash installed or it won't work.
Yes, it's using a Java application, so.
And be careful because the gallery's not, nobody checks the gallery, so there are sometimes things out there that
Yes,
aren't school appropriate.
Yes, it's not always school appropriate, so you do have to be careful with that. I wouldn't set kids loose in the gallery, but it's great for you as if you want to design something, or if you're controlling it in the front of the classroom with a projector or something like this, and so that they're not necessarily going on it on their own in your classroom.
And I haven't really done this, but I know that you can, like if you have a speech, you can copy like somebody's speech or something and then put it in there, and the words that the person uses the most will be the words that are big, which is kind of cool. Like if you were trying to see like what their focus was.
Yes.
So like if they're talking, if they say respect 50 million times, then respect would be huge.
Yes, you
If
could
they
put
say economy, yeah.
you can
could
put a
just-
speech in there to see what the themes were of what somebody was
Major
talking
things
about.
would be big.
This is WKAR.org, so it's pulling from our RRS. We have radio reading service, and so that's RRS, and I always confuse that with RSS feeds. But so this is WKAR.org, and it's pulling news information. I can see that we have a lot on presidential election stuff, and so anyway, you can put, as long as the website has a feed like that, you can put a website URL in there too and see what that site is about in that way.
And although it has an import feed, it doesn't have an export or save as. So unless you want to save it to their site. So if a kid wants to print it, you have to do a screenshot or do a snip, or else they'll lose their work. So it's important to have that set up with the kids understand that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Or you have some very unhappy
Yeah, or
children.
you can copy the URL and send it to you in an email.
Right.
And the other thing you can do is you can Google using Wordle in the classroom, and there are all kinds of teachers who use it, and they get around the security issues and all that kind of stuff too. So I would Google it if you're interested in using it. But I think it's also a good illustration of simple storytelling, and that's really what Doreen asked me to talk to you about. We're talking about digital storytelling in particular, but if you think about it, I mean, storytelling is storytelling, really, and especially when I'm talking with teachers who aren't used to using technology in the classroom, is really overwhelming for them. I just try to get them to think about it as another tool, as anything else, and so you can apply these tools to storytelling in a lot of different ways, and digital storytelling is just another extension of that. And kids actually are telling digital stories all the time, online, everywhere, and you are too, I'm sure, in what you're doing. But are you familiar with Daniel Pink's book, A Whole New Mind? It's really, I think for me, this book outlines exactly why it's important to talk to educators about storytelling, because that's how kids are learning. They learn through stories. We all learn through stories and have for eons. But I think this book is really reaffirming for those of us who always knew that right-brainers were, we knew we were onto something. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, I'll just go to the table of contents. Oop, oh, I missed that part. Let me go back. Well, actually, I don't need to show you the table of contents. I'll just tell you that there's a section on it about storytelling and how that's so important when you want to reach and get your point across. And if you haven't read the book, I recommend getting it and reading the story section in particular. It's also got a section on design. And I know Carl Good was here last night. Did you all enjoy his presentation? He's really fantastic. We're really lucky to have him here. But I think I'm sorry I had to miss it, but I think he was talking about thinking of yourselves as creative. I mean, was that new for you, or have you always thought of yourselves as creative? Who was it new for? Was it? It's new for me too, which is really funny because I've been a television producer, and of course I must be creative, but I don't necessarily think of myself that way. And so I have to always reaffirm for myself, well, yeah, of course you're creative. You're coming up with things every day. Mm-hmm.
And what struck me the most was his definition of the theatrical intelligence, because I never thought of it that way. Because I have some kids in middle school that are really, really strong in that.
Yeah.
They can perform, and they can persuade, and they can act and emote. And that makes complete sense to me. I've never heard that term before, though.
Yeah, and it's so valuable in a classroom if you can take that. Sometimes it can be disruptive, but you can take it and use it, to your benefit, and really have an impact with that child, but also have it impact the others who maybe weren't looking at it as a useful, as something that's useful. So if you have no problem thinking of yourselves as creative, which I think is great, because obviously everyone in this room is extremely creative to do what you do. But what about, do you consider yourself a designer? Anybody? I see some nods. Anybody who just would never think of, who had never thought of it that way? Because I think that any educator is a designer, and that's what Daniel Pink's book goes into, as well as, you're designing lesson plans, and you've probably heard that phrase together, but a lot of teachers I come across say, well, yeah, but I'm just thinking about what I need to put together in order for them to understand this theme. Or, well, yeah, that's what design is. You're putting together elements. You're pulling elements that are going to support this theme, and you have a point of view, and you're using empathy, which is another thing that he talks about in the book. And all of those things are really important in digital storytelling. So all of that is to say that this book, I think, is something that's really pertinent if you're considering using digital stories in the classroom. I guess I should ask before we go through all of this, how many of you already do that? Digital storytelling, and you're really confident in it. Great. Are there specific tools that you use?
Blogster.
Okay.
Or Boki.
Are any of you familiar with those?
Blogster or what?
What was the second one?
Boki.
Folky?
It's like you create an avatar and then the kids.
Oh, yeah, that's cute.
Cool.
Prezi.
Prezi, Photo Story, iMovie.
Photo story. What about VoiceThread?
Haven't done it yet.
You've used it? Good. Well, you can help me then, because that's the tool that I'm going to talk about today and that we're going to use tomorrow. So those of you who have used it and know exactly what to do, that's really good, because I don't use it every day. But it's a tool that I came across a couple years ago in working with teachers, and I thought, oh, this is really going to help. But for those of you who aren't all that familiar with digital storytelling, I thought it might be useful to just talk about these. There are 7 elements in general, and this will probably sound familiar to most of you, but of course there's a point of view in any storytelling. I'll give you a handout with these URLs, so it's, don't worry about writing it down or to try to find it, but there's point of view, there's the dramatic question, the story's following the structure. This is true for digital stories as well, even if you aren't using voice, if you're just using sound. Sound is music for emotional content. That's really important. And I'm kind of going through these elements because you're going to be putting together your own digital story with the artifacts that you're collecting, that you collected today. You took your cameras out today, right? So, and interviews tomorrow. Well, these are some of the elements that I'd like you to consider while you're putting your stories together. So, the gift of your voice. So, a lot of times people just put images and music together, which I happen to really like. I think that can be really powerful, but it's also really powerful to use your voice and to hear your own voice. Soundtrack, again, we're talking about music there. Economy, I think this is really, really important. At the station, we're always talking about, oh, we have a 30-second spot or we have a half an hour show. Well, you have to fit a lot into that. And you do it fitting it into lesson plans. You have to figure out, what can I leave out? What's the most important piece that's really going to get my point across? So you need to do the same thing in a digital story, especially in a digital story, because they're they can get boring, just like anything else. You have to really figure out what do I need to use to get my point across. And then pacing, and that's tricky. I think pacing is one of the most tricky parts about storytelling. You need the story to breathe, and you know it when you see it. But when you go to try to, it's like writing. When you read writing that seems effortless, and then you go and try to do it, and you say, I can do that, and you go and try, it's not effortless. It's really kind of hard. Well, a lot of that, I think, is in the pacing, and it's the same for video, it's the same for audio, and it just takes practice. But those are the 7 elements that I'd like you to think about and consider when you're putting these together. And I just have a sample of something that I think is done really well. You're probably all familiar with it, but I think it's pertinent to what you're talking about here at the conference. And I think it's a great example of a digital story done well with emotion.
I got a question for you. What does this city
Hiya,
know
guys.
about luxury? Huh? What does a town that's been to hell and back know about the finer things in
I've seen
life?
it before, but really look at the imaging and sound.
Well, I'll tell you, more than most. You see, it's the hottest fires that make the hardest steel. Add hard work and conviction, and the know-how that runs generations deep in every last one of us. That's who we are. That's our story. Now, it's probably not the one you've been reading in papers. The one being written by folks who've never even been here and don't know what we're capable of. Because when it comes to luxury, it's as much about where it's from as who it's for. Now, we're from America, but this isn't New York City, or the Windy City, or Sin City, and we're certainly no one's Emerald City.
This is the Motor City. And this is what we do.
So what strikes you about the choices that they made? I mean, do you think it would have been as powerful without the music? No. Or I wonder if it would have been as powerful without the voiceover.
No.
You think?
No, it all builds the story.
Mm-hmm.
You need the Joe Louis fist. Yeah. That's huge. I mean, it's a Detroit icon right there.
Well, I think Doreen was going to show this as well as an example with, I mean, when you listen to the words in the story, I mean, talk about economy, right? I mean, we could do a whole there have been documentaries done on this, you know, we could do 2 hours on the story of Detroit, but you watch that and do you feel like you have an understanding of the sense of Detroit?
Oh, there's such a feeling of loss.
Loss?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what else?
But resurgence.
And resurgence?
It seemed kind of angry, a borderline anger, or just some.
Do you think
anger.
that was on purpose, or do you think that's just?
Well, a commercial, you know, it's sleight of hand to a large extent. It is what it is, but it just seemed commercials usually aren't angry. It struck me.
I thought he was trying to show like you can, you know, people that don't know anything about us are trying to judge us, but I'm going to tell you what it's really like. So I think he was like he was angry at the detractors, and he was showing his pride in the city.
Mm-hmm.
He's also being tough.
Yeah, tough.
Yes, we're.
But also the imported from Detroit, you know, the people are choosing their money to spend their money on imported luxury cars.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not supporting our economy. So that's the anger. I think that subtext is fueling the anger.
Yeah.
And, you know, and he absolutely communicated it without, you know, all that paragraph, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, it's Buy American is what that's all about.
Okay.
So what I thought was really interesting about this ad campaign was that it was about an experience. You don't see the product until the end. And so the whole thing is it's a story about Detroit, and it's this sort of like gritty pride thing. And the editorials that came out the next day and the next week about that, with everybody sort of embracing and pulling it together. Like it's very rare that an advertisement can have that sort of outpouring afterwards where people were just blowing up, like the internet and everything about like, yeah, somebody's finally sticking up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a pretty powerful human thing here.
And I was going to say, too, I don't think without an Eminem type song either that would have been as powerful, because, I mean, he makes, just knowing a lot of his music, you know, there is anger in it, and there is that kind of stuff, but, and just the power and that kind of stuff like that, so I don't think if they would have used any other music, it would have been as powerful either.
So those are choices, and that gets back to point of view, I think. You know, that's a specific choice that I think the creators made. This was done by Wieden and Kennedy. Actually, it wasn't even done by a Detroit ad agency, which I think is interesting. And my best friend happens to work for Wieden and Kennedy. So I actually met the guy who came up with this concept a few weeks ago when I was out there. And it's so interesting to listen to why they made the choices that they made. And if you take even one element away from what they did, I don't know if it would have had the impact that it had. And I think that's the key thing to remember when you're making choices about putting these things together. Mm-hmm.
Rather than do my spiel on it, I just want to add to what Ron commented on here, because this is a good place to put it in. My focus on that commercial when I saw it, and also when I brought it into what I wanted to talk with you about, is the choice of words. Which words they chose. And I'm a certified English teacher, so I pay a lot of attention to words and language. But when my husband and I were watching that, we're like, yeah, everybody. It was so moving for all of us. The very last line, when Eminem stood up and said his thing, we cringed. I looked at my husband, he looked at me, and I went, oh, because Eminem said, we're the Motor City, this is what we do. Used his fist like, there's a lot of other fist and hand imagery in it. What I wanted him to say, and I read a review, Eli mentioned, I think it was in the Ann Arbor News the very next day or a couple days later. I wanted him to say something about not the past, but the future. This is what we do. What word could have been added, what word could have been changed in those 4 words to indicate that we're recreating ourselves, we're innovating ourselves. So my husband and I discussed it a lot. What other word could he have used? What word could they have added? This is what we do. We've always done it. We're known for it. This is our history. We're the rust bucket. How could they have tipped it towards the future?
We could just say, this is what we're doing.
Or we do
Or
now.
this is what we do still.
This is what we can do. The thing we came up with, this is what we do best.
Oh, yeah.
We make cars we do it really well. But that also infers we do other things well too.
Yeah.
So that was what I wanted to use it for, because it's such a powerful piece. Everybody saw it. Just to think of those words. Think of,
It is. I think that's a really good point. And I think there could be lots of debate on all those kinds of things, but I think the overall effect of it, though, when I'm hearing you guys talk and how you feel about it, is, that's pretty, it sounds the same as Detroit, right? It's kind of angry. The city is kind of angry. And it may still be kind of looking backward a little bit. And
Doreen's point is excellent. What
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier, what maybe somebody else would like to add. When I saw it, and I talked to some other folks about it, who watched it as well, and the choice of that individual for spokesman, he wrote a song and sang a song called Stand about murdering a girl, putting her in the trunk of a car, killing her, using vulgar lyrics, using vulgar language. I'm not a big friend of President George W. Bush, but very disrespectful. And you're going to try to sell this product to mainstream America, and that haughty, irreverent look at the end. People don't like that.
But the other thing too,
I don't think
it's art.
Yeah,
because
that's true too,
art
yeah.
is also about getting people engaged
That's
and
true,
talking
yeah. You're
and
right.
getting people's attention. And man, did that ever get people's
you're right.
attention?
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
And
Negative
they
or positive?
They had Clint Eastwood and on the other side of the.
well, and that was an
well.
interesting thing, is that I said to Lauren, my friend, it seems like they're going to get a lot of flack for not employing a Detroit station or a Detroit agency for doing this. Why did they choose Wieden and Kennedy? And she said they specifically came to us because they're known for doing arty film style things, and that's what Chrysler wanted. They wanted to just completely blow people's minds, and they weren't getting that from the agencies in Detroit. They wanted to talk about the car. And Wieden and Kennedy wanted to inspire people and reach their emotions, and so that's what these stories can do. That's what storytelling can do.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is it's like a mini movie, and it's got a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. Well, and that's what goes into these elements. And I want to keep moving because I want to show. I'm supposed to be showing VoiceThread, but I'm so interested in what goes into it. I'm less interested in the tool. I'll just say that right out. You can find. You mentioned all the different kinds of tools, so this isn't about VoiceThread. This is just I have to pick something to talk about this and a tool that we can use. I am choosing VoiceThread because it's web-based and it's not something you needed to load on your computers or that we have to load anywhere, and so I like it for that reason. But I should probably get into it and just show those who aren't familiar. For those who are familiar, I apologize. This might be kind of boring for you, but for those who aren't familiar with VoiceThread, I'm going to do. This in 1 minute can explain it better than I can, so I'm just going to play this for you.
So what is a VoiceThread? Well, it's a tool for having conversations around media. Whether it's images, videos, documents, or presentations, or any combination of them, a VoiceThread can securely capture and hold an entire group discussion on one simple page. When people make their new comments, they will fill in around the edges, and the participants can even draw while they're talking, which is a very efficient way of getting your point across. Down here, behind the comment button, are actually 5 different ways for people to comment: by telephone, by webcam, by microphone, by text, or even file upload. Which means that if you can load this page at all, you can participate in this conversation, period. Now let's take a quick look at how you get around in a VoiceThread.
This is the coolest thing ever.
Okay, so that's essentially what VoiceThread is. There's another 1 minute on how to make a VoiceThread. I think I better show you that too, because you're going to need this for tomorrow. But these tutorials are on the site. So I understand that some people are having trouble making an account with VoiceThread. If you have that problem, let me know. But you should just be able to go. I just did. Did you? Yeah. Great. If anybody has problems, ask around, because I think people can help you. It should be pretty simple. But once you do, you can see these tutorials. And I'll show you right now. There's a Browse tab. And so these are all kinds of VoiceThreads that have been done and uploaded into the gallery. So you can do searches for what other schools have done, what other teachers have done. Just regular people make vacation VoiceThreads. There are people who might upload, there are applications that are endless. So you could upload photos from your parents' anniversary, for their anniversary from their wedding album, and then have relatives from all over the world look at it online and add their voice to it and say, oh, I remember this day, and you saw how they line up there on the side. So this is a little different than something like Photo Story, where you could make a film theoretically like the ad that we just saw. This one is still a digital storytelling tool, but it's very interactive. And so I have a few that I wanted to show you as samples, but let me first quickly do this 1 minute how to make a VoiceThread so you can get a better understanding.
You can make a VoiceThread in about the same amount of time it takes to shoot off an email to a friend. So here's how you do it. Just go to Upload, click on it, and then go find your images, documents, or video from wherever they are. You can hold down the Shift key to select more than one, and then you start uploading. If it's not a video or a document, it should go pretty quickly. Now once they're uploaded, it's easy to rearrange. You just click on the picture and then drag it to whatever new location you want it to be at. And then whenever you're done and they're all uploaded, the next thing you're going to do is go to comment. So click on the comment button, and that will open up, and this is like a preview. You can go through the images, making sure you like the order, and comment on the images, telling people your story. Then you want to go up, click Add a Title and Description, and put in your text. That's one cute boy. Click Save, and then you're ready to share. So go click the Share button. And see, I got 3 friends here, and it's very simple. You just click them, their thumbnail, to select them, and you see it's highlighted in yellow. And then go click the Invite button. And that's it. You've sent them an invitation. It says Invite Sent in their thumbnail, and that's it. If you want to learn about some of the fancy collaborative ways that you can use a VoiceThread, check out the advanced tutorial. Thanks.
So I wanted to show those to you because once you log in and you have an account, you'll be able to see those blue tutorials of you can draw on the images, but you've been going around and collecting your own artifacts of your experience for this conference, and I'm hoping that you can envision importing those photos into VoiceThread like this. You can use your own voice to discuss what you saw in each picture. You can type a comment so it's written out. You're going to be doing some interviews tomorrow, so we can experiment with recording voice if you want to and importing their voice in. We can try lots of different ways, but if you could make an account tonight and play around with it, I think you'll be far ahead of the game. Even if you have your own laptop, you can load your own photos, even better. That would be great. I'm just going to show you a sample of, these are some that people have done. This isn't a classroom example, but let's see if we can hear it.
This monster is really cool.
This is a boy who's created some monsters. And
this monster's name is Robot Man. One of his attacks is Snap. That attack does 80 damage. Sidekick does 90 damage. And he was the first monster ever to battle in the war against the alien lizards.
And he's got a ton of monsters, and he's describing each one and what went into it and what went into creating it. And so I've seen art teachers who have uploaded assignments like that, and then had kids from the classroom comment on the other child's, so you could theoretically have 28 comments on each drawing, with kids saying what they like about it. And when kids hear their own voices, you've probably experienced that. When they see their artwork or their essay published and then others commenting on it, that's really something that instills a lot of pride. So that's what I like about these kinds of tools. There's going to be issues in terms of using it in the classroom, of course, so you have to figure those out. Some teachers have one account in their name, 28 that they've done in their own, and then they assign names to the kids. You can try different ways of doing that, but this is another example of a classroom where the teacher had them create posters about, after listening to a guest speaker.
Welcome to our voice thread. Throughout the year, we've been studying the theme of tolerance and the internment of the Japanese Americans in World War II. The students have written historical fiction letters as if they were in the internment camps themselves.
She visited their classroom, and they created these posters and then voiced what they imagine it would have felt like to be in this internment camp. And the teacher posted them at VoiceThread, and the woman who had come to speak to them was out of the country, back home, and was able to comment on each child's poster. So you can have guest speakers from anywhere in the world commenting on what's happening here. So maybe they Skype in and talk to the kids, and then they create something based on that. But it doesn't end there, because the guest speaker can then be commenting back and forth on that. Parents, grandparents, anybody. So that's what I like about VoiceThread. It's a little bit different than, like I said, than Photo Story or something like that. But I imagine you all are much more creative than I am in terms of thinking about the applications for something like this. But I would encourage you to play around in the gallery to see what else is there, so you have some ideas for tomorrow as well. And I had some videos of Ira Glass. Are you familiar with Ira Glass? We don't have time to show them here, but on YouTube, he has 4 videos. They're broken up into 4 separate videos about storytelling, and he's like the king of storytelling. And they're amazing videos, and I was going to show you number 1 and number 3. So if you have time tonight and you're able to listen to those, the third one is so interesting. He talks about how when we're all beginning and we're just starting, we have really good taste. And so it's like with the writing, you assume you'll be able to do something as well as what inspired you to start the project in the first place, but you're not going to. You have to, but you can't give up. And so that's his whole point. So I guess I shouldn't take you through the video, just watch the video. But I just want to leave you with those words, because this can be daunting, this kind of stuff, if you haven't done it before. The technology issues can be a pain. I'm sure we'll run into some tomorrow, I hope not, but it can be difficult to try to do this kind of thing with a classroom full of kids when there's so many issues to deal with. But if you just persevere and keep doing it, eventually you're going to get really good at it, and the benefits will far outweigh any of the pain that you had going through it. So that's what that third video is about. So if you just Google storytelling and Ira Glass, they'll pop up. So thank you so much for coming, and let me know if you have questions.
Susie has the greatest, most relaxed attitude towards technology, and that's what I love about you, because you're so reassuring, and it's just playing, and it's not neuroscience, and I appreciate it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Thank you, and
You're welcome.
we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
So just to wrap up, let's see, what do we need to do?